What's up, y'all? Welcome to a brand new podcast, the 4 Point Play. I'm one of your hosts, Hawk, and this is the other co-host.
My name is Jeremiah.
What's good, Jeremiah? How you doing? I'm excited for this, man.
Yeah, me too. I think we're gonna kill this, man. If you an NBA fan, you definitely gonna want to be tuned into this, man.
Facts.
We're
If you're
gonna
an
go
NBA
crazy
fan, you need
today.
to be tuned in. You need to be tuned in.
Yeah, we gonna go crazy.
We've been planning this for a couple of weeks now, and every little meeting behind the scenes, we always get into talking about hoop and talking about the NBA. So it's gonna be good. Y'all gonna enjoy this for real, for real.
Yeah, this though. We gonna get into some season preview stuff, man. Talk about the loaded NBA. Both conferences are crazy this year, man.
This might be one of the most kind of sort of even talent wise, at least among some of the top teams. Like I feel like there's a lot of contenders, and I don't feel like I'm gassing it by calling them contenders. There's a lot of really good teams this year.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably like 3 or 4 teams. I'm really solid are gonna be contenders, but there's probably gonna be at least 1 or 2 more teams along the way that join the group too. So
Facts,
it's
facts,
definitely a deep NBA this year.
facts. I mean, we recorded this on Monday. This episode's gonna drop on Wednesday. So I guarantee you, I'm watching both them games from start to finish tomorrow night. And I'm Wednesday night, I'm be sitting in front of my TV for like 5 hours watching all them games.
Yep. I think there's 2 games. Is it 2 games
Yeah,
open tonight? And
two
then
games open tonight. There's like 10
yeah,
Wednesday.
there's and then it really opens up on Wednesday. Yeah, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
Wednesday night. I'm gonna be stuck in front of my TV for sure.
that's facts.
I'm
That's
gonna be
facts.
there.
That's fact. All right, let's go ahead and get into this conference standings. I got my list. You got your list. Which conference do you want to start with? Eastern Conference or Western Conference?
Let's start with the East. Let's start with the
Let's start with
East.
the East. Want to go
Hmm.
from bottom to the top?
Let's do it.
All right. At number 15 in the Eastern Conference, this is where I have the Indiana Pacers. I don't think they're gonna be that good. I think they're gonna be purposely tanking, try to get Victor. I think Tyrese is gonna look nice and look really, really good. But in terms as a team as a whole, I don't see them winning many games.
Yeah, I actually had them at 15 as well. I think partway through the year we could see the Rush trade, which I think might actually help their tanking efforts to get Buddy and Miles out of there since they are pretty good players. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're going to be in the Victor sweepstakes for sure.
That's facts. That's something I also thought about because even if they don't trade Russ for Heald and Turner, they probably gonna trade him to somebody because they want to
Yep,
be a bad team.
yep, they want to be bad, and those guys are kind of like late 20s that don't really fit the timeline. So
Yep.
they have every incentive to try to trade those guys at some point for the best return they can get.
Yeah, exactly. Who do you have at 14?
I got the Hornets.
Same.
I think they're gonna be bad. Last year they barely snuck in the play in. Lamelo had a great year. He's gonna miss, the first whatever couple weeks. I don't think there's an actual timeline out, but
Not
I
yet.
think it's one of those years where if you start behind the 8 ball, you could get pushed to the gutter. And I think that's what's gonna happen. They're probably gonna start, 2-8, 2-9, 2-10, and
Keep
it's just
going
gonna
from
go in the
there.
wrong. And then the Miles Bridges thing. So their second best player last year isn't even gonna be on the team, and they didn't get nothing for him. I think they're gonna be in the Victor sweepstakes as well.
Yeah, I also have the Hornets at 14 for everything you said. Missing Miles is gonna be huge for them. Like you said, their second best player, not having him, and yeah, once you start losing some games early, it's gonna come to bite you when it comes down to the standings at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Who you got at 13?
13 is where I have the Pistons. So I like what they did in the draft. I like to pick up a Jaden Ivey. I love Cade Cunningham, what he can do. I think the trading away Grant was good for them because now they got guys who are all in their timeline. But I think they're still just going to be a team that's fun to watch and enjoyable to watch. But I don't see them winning a lot of games.
Man, we are tick for tack so far. I got the Pistons at 13 too. Great minds think alike. For a lot of the same reasons. Like I like their core. I love Cade. Jaden Ivey next to Cade I think it's gonna be a great fit. Um, they got some other young pieces I like. Ultimately, they're just talent poor right now. Those
Yep.
guys are growing, but I like their core. But somebody got to finish 13. Somebody got to finish at the bottom. I just don't think they're gonna have the talent to compete with these upper teams here.
Who you got at 12?
I got the Magic.
Yo, we
Uh,
really got the same.
I got the Magic. Okay, so I think the Magic are going to be one of those. They're going to be in the one of those quote unquote bad teams, but they're going to be one of those feisty teams. I think you're not going to be able to walk over them the way you might, the Pacers, Hornets, Pistons, and some other teams in the West too. I like their core. Bankero, Fultz, what's that kid? The kid Franz Wagner.
Franz, yep.
Yep, Wendell Carter Jr. They got some really nice young pieces. I just think
Jonathan Isaac might actually be healthy this year too, from what they're
and if
saying. So I'm
yeah,
excited to see him finally play.
if Jonathan can stay healthy, they might be in play-in territory, a couple spots higher than this, but that remains to be seen. I want to see how the young pieces play together, but yeah, I got them at 12. I think they're going to be okay to watch this year.
Got you. All right, I also have them at 12. At 11, this is where I have the Knicks. I think I love Jalen Brunson coming to that team. I really, really do. A lot of people was making fun of him, calling it an overpay. When you really look at how much point guards is being paid, he fits smack dab in the middle in terms of pay salary. I like him. I just think they're still missing a couple of things. I don't really know what version of Julius Randle we're going to get. I think RJ Barrett has gotten better year after year, but I still don't love them defensively. And the team that I'm really excited about to talk about after this, I think could be a little bit better than them. So I'm leaving the Knicks at 11.
Oh, man, I feel like you must have saw my list beforehand. Something funny going on, man.
Don't tell me
I got the Knicks in the same spot.
I thought I was being spicy by putting them there too.
No, I don't. I feel like a lot of Knicks fans are gonna hate that. I'm sorry, Knicks fans in advance, but your team's probably not gonna be that good. I think the year you had 2 years ago was probably gonna end up being an outlier. I'm not a huge Julius guy. I like the Jalen Brunson addition. I like Jalen. I also like the direction that what's his name? RJ Barrett is going. I think he really improved last year from the year before, so I like that. But you're in a tough conference. I think there's a lot of talent in the East this year, and I just don't think Jalen is going to be enough to really push you ahead.
Dang. Wow. So who you got at 10?
So at 10, I got the Wizards. Obviously the Bradley Beal thing, he's a great player, top 20 player in the league in my opinion. He didn't get to play a lot with Porzingis last year. By the time they got Porzingis, Bradley was kind of injured, and so they'll get a chance to play together this year. Kuzma, so they got some nice pieces. I don't think they're going to be like an easy win. Ultimately, though, I'm worried about that defense. Are they going to be able to get any stops at any point against anybody? I don't know. So I got them sneaking into the play-in, but yeah, I got them at 10.
Same. I also have the Wizards at 10 for a lot of similar reasons because Bradley Beal and Porzingis didn't play together. The defensively on the perimeter, I don't know what much they're going to do. I'll be honest. I'm hoping that Porzingis can be that defensive unicorn that we all wanted him to be back in his Knicks days. If he can get back to that, he might be able to carry them to an average defense just off the strength of his rim protection and switchability. But I like the Knicks. I mean, I like the Wizards. I like what Kuz did last year. I'm a low-key fan of Rui Hachimura. I think they can sneak into that 10 spot.
Yeah, for sure. Who you got at 9?
At 9, this is where I have the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I've said that I've talked about this a lot at length about how on paper I can see the DeJounte Murray trade, and I understand why they did it on paper. And they looked good in preseason. They did look really, really good in preseason. But I'm still curious to see how it's actually going to flesh out and mesh in terms of who's going to have the ball in their hands the most. Is it going to be DeJounte? Is it going to be Trey? I don't like the idea of DeJounte being the off-ball guard because he's not really that great of a shooter. But I also don't want to take the ball out of Trey Young's hands. I think they're going to miss Kevin Huerter a little bit. I think they're going to miss some spacing because now with DeJounte taking his spot, teams can sack off of him a little bit more. Not completely leave him open because if you catch the ball, he can instantly drive to the basket. That's a part of his game. But they don't have to hug him as close as they had to hug Kevin Huerter. So that's kind of the reason why I have them at the 9 spot.
Yeah, I have a lot of similar concerns as you about the Hawks. There's one team I have more concerns about that I have them at 9. That's the Bulls. The Lonzo situation is freaking me out. Last year, when Lonzo was in the lineup, they were playing like a top 4 team in the conference. Lonzo gets injured. All of a sudden, they start really sliding. I think he's more important than maybe Bulls fans know this, but I think other NBA fans don't really realize how important he is to their team. I have no idea how. I mean, last I heard, the doctors didn't even really know what went wrong or what's really going on. So a whole botch stuff there. My other concern is, can DeMar repeat what he did last year? Like, He had a career year, as far as I'm concerned. Can you have 2 career years in a row? I have no idea. I'm a little hesitant on that. Caruso has some injury history. I'm not in love with their paint defense at all. Vucevic has a lot of strengths, but that's not one of them. I think their X factor this season is going to be Patrick Williams. I think if he can kind of take the next step, if he can show, especially on the defensive side of the floor, if he can provide them something at the rim or something on the interior, I think they could be better than 9. But I think that remains to be seen. I got him at 9.
Gotcha. Did I do 9 or first? Did you do 9 first? You want to do 8?
Yeah, I'll do 8. So 8, I got the Hawks.
Okay.
A lot of the same concerns as you. I don't think the fit offensively is as seamless as a lot of people do, for a lot of concerns you said, where if you got DeJounte off the ball, not a lot of spacing there like you had with Herter, but if you have Trey off the ball, you're taking, the ball out of your best player, your best playmaker's hands. So I'm interested to see how they fix that. I think it could work, but I'm not as high on it as a lot of people. I think defensively is really where DeJounte could potentially make a big impact. Being able to, a Herter, Trey Young backcourt defensively is not ideal. So being able to have a guy like DeJounte who he can guard the other team's point guards, shooting guards, their best players, things like that on the perimeter, that's going to help a lot. To me, their X factor is Clint Capella. Can he get back to who he was 2 years ago when they made the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah.
Last year, he was injuries in and out of the lineup. When he was there, he didn't really look like himself. To me, he's their piece. I think if he can get back to who he was 2 years ago, then I could definitely see him higher than what I have them, but that remains to be seen. I have the Hawks at 8.
I'm campaigning that the Hawks. I do agree about what you said about Clint Capella, that he didn't look like himself last season, and he hasn't looked like he did 2 years ago when they were really, really good. But because of that, all last year I was like, let's see what a Onyeka Okongwu will look like. I think Clint Capella is still the better rim protector, but I like Okongwu's switchability and some of the versatility he brings. That if he can kind of solidify that jump shot a little bit more, I won't be mad if he gets that starting spot over him. At 8, this is where I actually have the Bulls. I have the Bulls at 8 for a lot of the same reasons you said. And I actually saw, it was either this morning or late last night, Lonzo's surgery was successful. Apparently, it was some sort of bone fracture that was touching a nerve in his knee, and that was what was causing him all the pain and stuff like that, where he was saying he can't walk upstairs, can't run, all this, that, and the third.
Okay.
So they're going to reevaluate him in a couple weeks, but that still tells me he probably ain't worked out all summer, so who knows what type of shape he's in. So the injury might be fixed, but I don't still see how fast he's going to come back because he's still out of shape. The reason I got the Bulls over the Hawks is mainly because although DeMar had a career year, and I agree, I don't know if he's going to have the exact same year he had last season, but I don't think he's going to fall off that much. I kind of kept the eye on DeMar when he was still playing with the Spurs, and some of the things he picked up from his time with the Spurs, his playmaking ability, he brought with him to the Bulls, and he seems confident that he'll be able to replicate some of that going into next year. I do like the pickup of Goran Dragic. He's not Lonzo by any means, but he's a solid half-court type point guard for them. And I think low-key, they got one of the best backup bigs in the league right now. We're adding Drummond to their backcourt, their front court.
Yeah, they did have some rebounding issues at times, especially once their backup big. So I do like, and I saw Drummond was shooting threes. I don't know how sustainable that is, but I think, even if you can shoot a 2 or 3 a game, shoot 34, 35, 36%, that adds something. That's not, I think that's a positive for you. My issue is that maybe it'll go to his head. He'll start, shooting 4 or 5 a game, shoot 30%. That won't be good for anybody. But
that's true.
Yeah, I agree with you. Who do you got at 7?
So 7, this is where I have the Toronto Raptors. I love the Toronto Raptors. I love what they're doing. Every time I turn them on, it's like a whole bunch of 7-footers running around, switching everything. Like what they got going is great. I think there's some holes in what they're doing in terms of the center position. I would love for them to get a solid center. I know they have Christian Koloko that they just picked up. I know Precious Achiuwa is there. But Koloko's young and Precious is kind of undersized, and they run a lot of Pascal Siakam at the center. And with some talented centers in the league, or not even just at strictly the center, but just guards even attacking the basket, attacking the rim. There's a lot of rim pressure you can put on the Toronto Raptors. And I just wish they had somebody to shore up some of that defense in the paint a little bit better. but I love the switchability. I love Scotty Barnes. I love OG. I love Fred. Like they got a really good team.
Yeah,
It's just
I have the Raptors in the same spot. For some reason though, I think I'm a little bit higher on them. I think the only reason they won't be higher is the top of the East is going to be maybe as good as it's been in a
yeah,
decade. Um, I I like Precious. I think he's shown some improvement when I've been watching him this preseason. He to me just fits what they want to do really well. They want to switch everything. They want to be long. They want to contest shots. I think he fits that. Hopefully, with some offensive improvements, I think they'll be a little bit better on offense than they were last year. But they are. I think I saw a stat where they're the longest team in the league. Like if you just
yeah,
add up everybody's like
yeah.
wingspan, like just I mean, Precious at the 5, Siakam, OG, like just long, long, long. And I think they're probably going to be a top 10 defense again. Nick Nurse just seems to churn out great defenses year after year. Obviously, offensively was where they kind of struggled and why they weren't as good. I think they'll be a little bit better there. Ultimately, though, I don't have them higher. I just think that the 6 teams I have above them, just the top of the East is just really, 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 really good this year.
Yeah. Who do you have at 6? Now we getting into these are playoff locks. These ain't
Yeah,
playing teams. These is playoff
yeah.
locks.
I know this fan base is they gonna go haywire. I got the Heat. I think I think they're gonna I think they're gonna fall off this year. I don't obviously I don't have them like in the play in or anything like that. But here's my thing with the Heat.
Ooh, they gonna be on you.
My question to Heat fans is, how did this basketball team get better? I think the other teams in the East that I have above them got better or found a way to get better from where they were last year. I would venture to say that the Heat probably got worse. Lost PJ. Their best players are only a year older. Kyle Lowry already wasn't looking that great last year. Jimmy was great in the playoffs, but at some point, I just think you might be starting to ask him to do too much, putting too much mileage on him, leaning on him too much in the playoffs. There's typically one or two teams in each conference every year that kind of fall down the rankings from where they were. I just think the Heat are going to be that team. I just think the 5 teams I have above them found a way to get better, and I'm not sure the Heat did that.
I'm not mad at that. I like it. The reason it makes sense. I ain't gonna lie to you. I got them a little bit higher, but the reason it makes sense. At number 6, this is probably the hardest. This was the hardest team for me. This is where I have the Brooklyn Nets. I listen. KD's one of my guys. I've been a KD fan since he got drafted. I was mad when he went to the Warriors, but still been a low key fan of his. But the reason I have them here is just I have a lot of question marks for him, and I think they're going to do a lot of their meshing and figuring stuff out on the fly, like during the season. I don't love Steve Nash as a head coach, so I don't know how well he's going to get them to mesh. Not saying I think he's a bad coach, but he hasn't proven to me yet that he's a good coach. So I'm skeptical on him. I'll be honest. I think they have some better additions. I think they are going to potentially look better than they did last year. I'm curious to see what Ben looks like. That's a big question mark for me. I know Joe Harris is going to be back, so they got that floor spacing. But I'm uneasy about them a lot. I don't love their center situation. I know everybody's telling me Ben's going to play the 5, and he did look good against Giannis. I know the clip in the preseason of when Giannis actually got the dunks, a clip that went viral. But when you look at the numbers when Ben was guarding him, he played a good job, guarding Giannis, and he looked good playing defense there. But over the course of an 82-game season, I don't know how much I love Ben Simmons playing center like consistently.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a little bit higher on the Nets. I kind of want to hold off until I get to that place. At
Mm-hmm.
5, though, I have the Cavs. Obviously, I love the Donovan Mitchell addition. I think that's what they need. They need a leading scorer, basically. Let Darius Garland go back to being like a playmaker, secondary option as a scorer. I think that's the role he'll kind of grow into and be best at. Hopefully, Evan Mobley can stay healthier than he was last year. I'm really high on him. I think he's got the potential to be one of the best defensive players in basketball once he kind of grows. I love Jared Allen, underrated rim protector. Again, that's just the 4 teams I have ahead of them I'm just more confident that they'll be able to get close to their ceiling as a team. Whereas obviously the Cavs are young, you just added a brand new centerpiece. Like it's probably going to take a year or 2 for you to kind of really get to where you ultimately want to be. But yeah, I like the Cavs. Hopefully, I thought Ricky Rubio was really great for them last year when he was healthy. He's
Yeah.
going to be back. So all in all, I love the Cavs roster. I just think they're a little young to be, at the top of the conference.
I agree. This is number 5, exactly where I have the Cavs as well. I like the Donovan Mitchell addition a lot. I love Evan Mobley. If he can, once like you said, be healthy and start to become what Cavs fans think he can be, the Cavs, like you said, a couple years down the line, can be really, really dangerous. They're a young team. They got a lot of talent. I like him at the 5 spot. I just, once again, think there are some teams ahead of him that just, got the little edge open for now.
Yeah, for sure. Who
At
you
number
got?
f- Yep.
I
At
was gonna
number
say who you
4,
got at 4.
this is where I have the Boston Celtics. And the reason is you alluded to something earlier. You said this could be the type of year that if you lose a couple of games to start the season, it can come bite you in the butt when it comes time to look at the seedings at the end of the season. They're going to miss Robert Williams for about 2 months. I think that's going to cause them to struggle a little bit. I think it could be very similar to how they looked at the beginning of last season when they were like around 500. There was even a couple of days where they were a little bit sub 500. And then they figured it out in January, and then they ended up towards the top of the conference. They looked amazing. They go crazy in the playoffs. I think they can have a very similar season to that. I think when it comes time to playoffs, they'll be fine. You ain't going to want to face the Celtics in the playoffs. But I think missing Robert Williams is going to be big for them for the first 2 months.
So at 4, I have the Celtics as well for the same reasons. I just think the Robert Williams thing, that's a big deal. To me, your best defensive player, your rim protector. I like the Brogdon addition. I think the biggest benefit of that is going to be moving Tatum more off the ball and outside of that playmaking role so he can focus on being a scorer. That's who he is at heart. I think you saw in the finals, the Warriors made him a playmaker. Like they made him have to have the ball in his hands and make plays for his teammates. They started doubling him and things like that. And I think that's a lot of the reason he struggled. So Brogdon hopefully will take enough off of Tatum's plate. He can start being a scorer again. But again, like I said before, I think this is one of those years where if you start the season slow, those losses are going to end up biting you towards the end of the year when it comes to seeding. Again, in the playoffs, once they're fully healthy, I think they're probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the conference, maybe one of 5 best teams in basketball. I'm not down on them playoff time. Seeding purposes, though, I think they're going to start slow.
Gotcha. Who do you got at 3?
I got the Nets. That's where I got the Nets. I love the way they're using Ben. That's really to me where my optimism for them comes from. They're kind of using him offensively the way the Warriors use Draymond. Let him be a cone. I mean, just because of the way teams guard those guys, if Ben sets a screen, if Draymond sets a screen for somebody, that person's coming off free. They're coming off with an easy look at a jumper. They can step right into it. And Kyrie, KD, 2 of the best mid-range players, 2 of the best shooters off the dribble, off the screens. I think he's really going to benefit them. And then defensively, I think he fits as well. The Ben Simmons and Claxton front court offensively looked a little shaky at times. The spacing's a little off. But I think defensively, it's going to be really a large improvement over what they were doing last year.
like that.
Last time we saw Ben healthy, he was in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. So he is. I mean, for all we want to talk about his offense, I think he's one of the best defensive players in basketball. If he can get back to that, plus being used a lot better on offense, that's where I think the Nets can potentially take a step.
I like that. It's funny. I feel like we swapped these teams because the number 3 is where I have the Miami Heat. So I get I get that they're going to miss PJ Tucker, but I think offensively they're not necessarily going to miss him that much. I think defensively they're going to miss him, but offensively they're not going to miss him that much. And the reason I'm still so high on the Heat is because I think Eric Spoelstra is one of the best head coaches in the league. I saw them miss Bam for almost all of November and December last year with his injury, and they looked like they basically didn't skip a beat. They were the number 1 team in the East last year with, dealing with injuries with guys in and out of lineup all season. They just seemed like one of the teams that just figure it out. And I think you're going to get a improved offensive game from Bam this upcoming season and Tyler Hero this upcoming season. I think actually might enter the starting lineup. Call me crazy, but I like the Heat a lot.
So let's talk about PJ for a little bit. I think they're really where they're going to miss him is defensively, in my opinion. Offensively, he was the best corner 3-point shooter in the league. I think that's value, but that's really it. He's just a spacer on offense. Yeah. So I think if you can, you can supplement some of that shooting. I think defensively is where I could see them. Because my question is, who's playing those minutes? Who's taking that spots? Is it going to be I think they got Omar. Is it going to be?
Yurtseven. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Um, I think Eric Spoelstra talked about playing him and Bam more together this year. So it looks like he's going to soak up some of those minutes. Is he, can he, just with their scheme, they like to switch. They like to, get into the ball, be aggressive. And I just think that played really well in the PJ's skill set. So I'm more concerned about them defensively than offensively. But we'll see. We'll see. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in basketball. So I think the Heat started the most different starting lineups last year and still found a way to be the number 1 seed in the East. So, I could very well be wrong about them.
Yeah. And part of that was supposed to try new stuff, but a lot of that was injury, COVID protocols. They went through a lot last year.
Mm-hmm.
At number 2, this is where I had the Philadelphia 76ers. I really think we're going to get, call me crazy, right, people? Call me crazy. I think we can get a first year in Brooklyn version of James Harden back. I think this is his first season. So I'm not asking for Rockets. I'm not asking for Houston. I just want his first year in Brooklyn version of James Harden for them. It's going to be one of his first seasons since one of his first full off seasons without having a rehab injury. Just be able to work on his game, being able to stay in shape. I think you're going to see improvement from Tyrese Maxey. I think what this Heat lost from PJ Tucker, the Sixers picked up by adding PJ Tucker. I love the pickup of the Anthony Melton. The Sixers were able to add pieces to their depth, including Montrezl Harrell, without losing some of the pieces that they had in the playoffs outside of Danny Green.
Yeah, I actually have the Sixers at 2 as well for the same reasons. I think we're going to see a renaissance year from James Harden. He looks to be in a lot better shape. I think he's going to be the healthiest he's been since he injured his hamstring the first year in Brooklyn. I think Tyrese Maxey's going to take a step forward. Obviously, I love the PJ Tucker addition. They added some depth pieces I really like. I just don't, I see a world where, James Harden kind of gets back to form. They have 2 of the 15, maybe 10 best players in basketball, some depth, a decent coach. I'm not a huge Doc fan, but a decent coach. I mean,
I'll give you decent. I don't like him neither, but I'll give you decent.
Yeah, a decent coach. But if Harden can get back to form, he's looking like a top 10, top 15 player. Maxey can improve a little bit. I don't see any reason they won't finish near the top of the conference.
Yeah, and I guess at number 1, the Milwaukee Bucks, huh?
Yep, the Milwaukee Bucks. Hey, here's the thing. What's funny is last season they cost themselves the 2 seed by, I think it was the last game of the season.
Yeah.
They rested all their starters, things like that. But I just think, number 1, they have the best player in the world. I think Giannis is the best player in basketball right now. Yep. Their core has been together for 3-4 years ever since they traded for Drew. Was that 3 years now? So I think there's
3 or 4.
Yeah, they don't really have any super new pieces to integrate. I don't know. So part of last year, I think Brook Lopez missed the beginning of the season, and their defense kind of took a hit, and so they probably lost some games maybe they wouldn't have. So they were near league average, and then Brooks comes back and they start to climb towards the top. So he's going to be starting the season again. So from a regular season record standpoint, I expect them to have a better record. Obviously injuries, you have no idea. The only concern is Chris Middleton. I don't know when he's going to be back, but yeah, I got the Bucks at 1.
Same. Bucks at 1 for basically all the same reasons you said. The only piece I'll add to that is what we saw with the lack of Brook Lopez was the emergence of Bobby Portis, and I loved everything I saw from him this season. He was absolutely wonderful for them. I can see them even running lineups if they want to go really big, of throwing Giannis at the 3, Bobby at the 4, and letting Brook run the 5. Like, they can run really big lineups if they want to. They got a lot of versatility. I like the Bucks a lot. And like you said, injury, we can't really control it. But even with injuries, like you said, Brook Lopez missed the start of the season. And if they wanted a higher seed, because they ended last year at 3, but if they wanted a higher seed, they could have got it. But they were resting guys to end the season.
Yeah. Yep. You want to go ahead to the West?
All right, let's go out West. I'm gonna start it out with number 15. At 15, this is where I have the Utah Jazz. Right. So I was watching the Jazz in the preseason. I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, I get Colin Sexton's there. I know Jordan Clarkson is still there. But when I'm like actually watching the games, I'm like, this does not look fun to watch at all. And I also think they're still going to find a way. I'd be surprised if they end the year with Mike Conley still on the team. Honestly, I'd be surprised if they end the year with Jordan Clarkson even still on the team, because I think they just got a lot of good pieces that other teams might be like, hey, let me go get this guy, let me go get that guy. Especially if teams start to play some more games and maybe realize what type of pieces they're missing. To me, if I'm the Jazz, I'm just ready to go ahead and sell all out. And I know you just got Colin Sexton. I know he's there, but he's so young that we could be like, let's tank this year and figure it out next year and try to build around him later. Because at the team as built, to me at least, even if they kept it as it is, doesn't fit around Colin Sexton anyway. So they got to change some things anyway.
Yeah, I think they're going to be bad. I just think there's one or two teams who are just going to happen to be worse. I got the Spurs at 15. I think their best player is probably Keldon Johnson, which is a concern. uh, I think they're going to try to be purposely bad. I think they're sinking all the way, especially trading DeJounte. I just think they are eyes on the Victor sweepstakes. They're going to be one of those teams who are they just don't have enough.
Yeah. Who you got 14?
14, I got the Thunder. Obviously, I love SGA. I like Giddey. I think he's maybe not quite as high on him as Thunder fans are.
Thunder fans are really high on Giddey.
Yeah, they are.
They love Giddey.
I think losing Chet is going to be a factor here. I probably have them higher if they had Chet. But I just ultimately think the West is a tough conference this year. They don't have a ton of talent outside of SGA. I like Lou Dort as well. He's a little bit out of his depth offensively, but defensively, one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. I just think they don't have a ton of talent.
Yeah. At 14, that's where I have the Spurs, basically for all the same reasons you said. And I agree. Keldon Johnson is probably their best player when I look at their roster. And I like his game. I think a lot of people have him in conversations for MIP. I don't think he's really going to be in the running because they're going to lose so many games. I know MIP's a individual award, but I don't know if they're going to vote for him if the Spurs are all the way at the bottom of the conference.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Who you got at 13?
13, that's where I have the Thunder. It's funny that you mentioned I'm an undercover Thunder fan, right? I'm like an undercover Thunder fan, mainly carrying over from the Russ, Harden, KD days, but I still be paying attention to the Thunder. That's why I jokingly said when you said Thunder fans are high on Giddey, I'm one of the Thunder fans that are high on Giddey. But SGA, I love his game. I'm also a big fan of Lou Dort. I'd be rooting for Poku to put on some weight and figure out how to be a better Pokusevski. But I think they are really going to miss Chet. And without having him, if they had him, they could potentially be a little bit higher because I would have loved to see what SGA and Chet look like maybe in a pick and roll playing off of each other, Giddey playmaking. But they got some solid pieces. We'll see what they do in the future. But they're just a young team figuring things out right now.
Yeah, at 13, I have the Jazz. That's why I have the Jazz. For a lot of same, I think they're going to be bad. I just think the Thunder and Spurs are going to be a little bit worse. I think they, ousted Rudy, ousted Donovan. Like they've been a top 4 seed for 4 of the last 5 years. Like they committed to the Victor sweepstakes. Like they let's get everybody who's worth anything. They got Patrick Beverly and then traded him to the Lakers right away. Like anybody who was worth anything, let's get them out of here. We're trying to lose basketball games. And I can't remember who they were playing, but I'm just like, I think they're going to be the worst defense in basketball. Like I was like, y'all, it was like 8 possessions in a row. I'm like, y'all are not going to get any stops. Y'all not going to get any stops. So
I can definitely see that. What's next? 12?
12.
12 is where I have the Rockets. Now, I think the Rockets are just going to be a really, really fun team to watch. I love their guard play. I still think I wish they had a playmaking guard on their roster. I think both of the guards they run are more like twos that they just try to figure it out. They're like more scoring first guards, and they just say, hey, figure it out. But I really like the roster. I think they're going to be fun to watch. Defensively, I think they got some, holes there, but they're one of my more. I like tuning in the Rockets games just because I know I'm going to see some exciting offense.
Yeah, I would say I view the Rockets in the West much the way I view the Magic in the East. I like their core. I think they got some really great young pieces. I can't remember a kid they just drafted, Jabari, Jalen Green. They just re-signed KPJ to an extension. Sengun. So they got They got some young pieces I really like. Ultimately, though, they're just in a tough conference. They're super young. Those guys haven't, obviously fully dived into their talent yet. So,
Yeah.
but I like them. They're going to be one of those feisty teams that is going to beat a couple contenders on a random Thursday night. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of view them in
Yeah.
that thing.
So this is where I think I'm really interested. This is where I'm really interested to see where you're at here, because I think the Western Conference has a little bit more movable pieces than the East did. I think we're going to be more different on the West than we were on the East. Who do you got at 11?
I got the Kings. I think they're going to be in that play-in range, like, fighting for a playing spot. I like them more this year than I did last year. If it was this Kings team, but last season, I'd probably have them in the play-in. I just think
Yeah.
that a lot of teams in the West just got better as they also got better. But
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis got a full off season. They're gonna have, they're gonna have a lot more time together this year. They're the team that got Herter. I like him next to Fox in the backcourt. I like that fit. Harrison Barnes is still there, so they got some pieces I like. I think they're gonna be a decent team, probably better than they've been in the last decade, maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know. But ultimately, the West just got better too as they got better.
It's funny. I say we're going to be different. And then I also have the Kings at 11. And it pains me to say it because I love what they did. I think Kevin Herter was a huge pickup. I love the pick and roll from Domantas Sabonis to De'Aaron Fox. It's one of the best pick and rolls in the game. They finally got spacing for De'Aaron Fox. And like you said, if they did this stuff and for last season, I'd be like, oh, they're a playing team. But everybody else got better too. And I'm like, yo, y'all really made all these moves. They say, yo, we're going to try to shoot for the playoffs. And I really wouldn't be surprised if they just on the outside looking in again. I really wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the conversation at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Who do you got at 10?
At 10 is where I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I hear me out, right? At 10, I still don't love this roster. I don't love this roster. Outside of AD and Bron, I really don't like the roster. I don't see Anthony Davis playing more than 60 games this season, to keep it a bean. And I'm not even saying he's going to get injured. I just think they're going to rest him a lot for precautionary reasons. I think he's going to play like 58, 59, maybe 60 on the head, but nowhere near over 65. I don't love their spacing. Their defense, to me, is questionable. Their defense is LeBron James and Anthony Davis locking up. Like, that's the defense. And I don't want LeBron to have to play defense every game. Now, the plus side for me, for the Lakers, is I think there would be a playing team at the 10, but I think they would make the playoffs because if you have LeBron and AD in must-win situations, I'm not betting against them. And then when it comes to the playoffs, if you have LeBron and AD on your team, anything is possible. I just think over the course of a regular 82-game season, they're going to just be like, hey, the Lakers are going to be a team that just puts scheduled losses on their roster. Because they're going to be like, hey, Bron and AD aren't playing this night. It's 3 games and 4 nights. They're just not playing tonight. And I think those are the type of games they're like, well, we're just going to chalk those up for losses.
Yeah. So I have the Lakers a little bit higher. At 10, I got the Blazers. They'll be better than last year. Obviously, Dame missed basically the whole season. Got Jeremy Grant this offseason. I like that pickup. I think that's a good fit with Dame. GP2, I like that. There was one more addition that I was thinking that I really liked for them.
Jeremy.
There was one more. Oh, I was just going to talk about Anthony. I think he's going to take a step forward. I was going to talk about Anthony Simons.
Yep.
I think he's going to take a step forward. So I like them. I think they're in the king space where the West just got better as they got better. Like, they're going to be better, but the West is going to be better too. But yeah, I got them at 10.
Okay. Who do you got at 9?
That's where I got the Lakers.
Okay. Okay.
So just one spot in front of you.
Yeah.
Same concerns you have, which is outside of, it's not that I'm down on LeBron. I'm a little down on AD. But ultimately, outside of those two guys, what am I looking at here? Kendrick Nunn, Dennis Schroeder, who's injured already.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I have to be super excited about. And then I'm concerned about AD's health. How many basketball games is he going to play this year? Like, yeah. I feel like if he got to 65 games, everybody should be pumping their fist. Like,
which is crazy to say, but that's like, facts. It's crazy to say, but that's facts.
Yeah. I will say, though, from what I've seen from the Lakers, he looks a lot better than he did last year.
I'll agree.
It looks like he shed a couple pounds, a little bit more mobile like he was 2 years ago. So that's good. My question is, can he stay on the court?
Mhm.
But I'm in the same place you were. I think they'll be a playing team, but they'll probably get into the playoffs because in a 1 game, 2 game sample, I don't see them losing and to any of these other teams I have in the play-in. And then once you get into the playoffs, like you said, you got LeBron James, maybe potentially the best player in the series.
Yeah.
If Anthony Davis is there, you have two of the probably 3 best players in the series. That matters in the NBA. So
Yeah.
it's not that I don't think they could probably make some noise potentially, depending on the matchup. But I just think over the course of 82 games in the regular season, I just don't trust the health enough. I don't trust the pieces they put around the 2 superstars enough.
I like that. At number 9 is where I have the Portland Trailblazers for a lot of the same reasons you said. Uh, I'm a huge Dame fan. I think he's going to be on a mission to prove the league to be like, hey, you always called me trash last year. No, I was injured, and he's going to be ready to prove that. I love Anthony Simons as well. What he showed off once Dame was out, once CJ was traded, if he can get somewhere close to that, I don't expect him to be the exact same because he's going to have to share the ball with Dame. But and in low key, I like Yusuf Nurkic as well. He's dealt with some injuries these last couple of seasons, but I think he's an underrated center in the league. I like what the Trailblazers got. At number 8, this was tough for me. Because number 8, number 7, and number 6, I was looking at for a while. Number 8 is where it has the Dallas Mavericks. Absolutely love Luka. I absolutely love Luka. But I think they're really, really going to miss Jalen Brunson and what he brought to that team. Everybody's telling me that Spencer Dinwiddie can kind of replace what he did and what he does. I really don't think he can. I do like the addition of Christian Wood and JaVale McGee. I think that was big for them. I think they needed to shore up some of their interior. But now I think they're back to Luca has the ball in his hands almost 100% of the time, and it's really hard to get some other guys involved in that. And they're going to run a really heavy heliocentric offense, and that just worries me a little bit.
I have a lot of those same concerns with the Mavs. I have slightly more concerns about the Grizzlies. That's the guys I have at 8. Jaren's gonna miss the first 2 months. 2 seasons ago, Jaren missed a lot of the year, and they were in the play. And then
Yep.
last season, Jaren comes back. I thought he should have been Defensive Player of the Year. The 2 years ago, the Grizzlies' defense was 24th. They come back last year, they're 4th, and now they're a 2 seed all of a sudden. I thought he was a huge, huge part of that. So you're missing your best defensive player, second best player on the team, in my opinion, for the first 2 months of the season. And again, it's just one of those years where if you start out behind the 8 ball, it's going to be hard to catch up. Ultimately, when they're healthy, I think they're going to be a really good team, like they were last year. I don't see them like
Yeah.
falling off too much. They did lose a couple rotation pieces. I like D'Anthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, so that could potentially play a role. But when healthy, I think they're going to be a really good team. I just think they're going to start behind the 8 ball, missing Jaren for the first 2 months. So I got him at 8.
Gotcha. Who do you have at 7?
That's why I got the Mavs.
Oh.
Yeah. So far, we right there. I don't like the Christian Wood for Jalen Brunson swap. I don't like it.
Mm,
I think Jalen's a better basketball player. I think Jalen's a better fit. I think I just I think the Mavs are about to find out why they got Christian Wood so cheap. I think
'cause it
Christian
was
Wood,
cheap. It was real cheap.
and this is an NBA where good players are not cheap.
Yeah.
So if a guy is cheap,
He's
you
cheap
know
for a
what that
reason.
means. Yeah.
He's cheap
Uh,
for a reason.
yeah. So I think no, offensively, I like the fit. I think he could potentially have a career. He's never played with a Luka Doncic, obviously.
Yeah.
The floor spacing is there. I think he's a lot worse defensively than pretty much anybody thinks. I got the chance to catch a few of the Rockets games. I checked his analytics. Every metric paints him as a pretty poor defender. So that's why I'm concerned. My number one concern though is they went the wrong direction. What I would have liked to have seen them do, if you're not gonna re-sign Brunson, then you need to upgrade at that position as your secondary ball handler. Because the issue that they had before last year was Luka's the only person who can make a play on the team. He's the
Yeah.
only playmaker you have on the roster, and now you went right back to that. The only playmaker you have on the roster. We saw Porzingis in the spot Christian Wood's about to be in, and the Mavs were in the play-in. Like,
Yeah.
how much better is Christian Wood than Kristaps Porzingis? I don't think he's better at all, in my humble opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they went the wrong direction. I think they're going to regret not re-signing Jalen. I got him at 7.
At 7 is where I have the Memphis Grizzlies for almost everything you said. I think they really are going to miss Jaren Jackson Jr. Uh, losing D'Anthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, I think, is going to be really, really underrated for them because they were both playing really, really well for them. There were some really good role players, and part of that depth, I think, is what kept them afloat in those 20 something games when Ja was out. When the conversation was, oh, do they even need Ja? I'm not going that far, but a part of the reason they were still good is because Jaren Jackson is Kyle Anderson is D'Anthony. Like they just had guys who could hoop, and they were able to. Everybody was able to step up collectively. I think they're really going to miss some of those pieces, so that's why I have them at 7.
Yes, sir. I agree.
At number
Si
6, go ahead.
This is where it's gonna start getting. Yeah, this fan base is not gonna like me either. uh, at 6, I got the Suns.
I knew you was about to say that. As soon as you said this fan base not about to like me.
So my thing is, again, I think 1 or 2 teams every year that were really good the year before take a step back. I think the Suns are that team. The DeAndre Ayton situation, I think, is going to fester. Obviously, he's on the team, but they were back and forth last year, and he seemed intent on being done with the Suns, and then the Suns basically forced him to, hey, nope, you got to stay over here. I think that's going to fester a little bit. The Jay Crowder situation is weird. I don't know what's going on there. They're going to end up trading him. I think he's been a really big piece of their last 2 regular seasons. And then how good is CP3 going to be? Like, dude is 37, 38. Like, he's going to start to fall off at some point. I'm personally predicting that will start this year. And I think we've seen a Devin Booker as your best player teams, and they're not elite, to say the least. So I think the combination of all those things, they're gonna. And I was looking historically, so I'm a big NBA history guy. I think history repeats itself, and when these top teams, first seeds, second seeds, like get embarrassed, like in the playoffs, like lose to a team that they shouldn't have lost to, the following season they take a big step back. It's almost like, I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but if you remember, so 2007 is probably the latest example of this, where the Mavs team was first in the West, and then they lost to Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, whatever, and then the following season they were like the 4 seed. Like they took a step back. I don't know. Maybe it's a psychological thing. I have no idea. But typically, like if you're great and then you get beat when you shouldn't have got beat, the next year you kind of come back down to earth. So for all of those reasons that I named, I got the Suns at 6. Suns fans don't kill me.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. The reason it makes sense. I got it a little bit higher, but everything you said, the reason it makes sense. At number 6 is where I had the New Orleans Pelicans. I done bought first class tickets to the Zion bandwagon. Like I'm all in. Like I'm all in on Zion. But I have some concerns, of course. Health is a concern. He, already had tweaked his ankle in that preseason game. They pulled him. They said it was just precaution. So there's obviously going to be some concern there. But I think it's a lot to say, but even without Zion, we saw that they were at least a playing team last year. You know what I'm saying? I think they have a good squad. I love BI. I love CJ on that team. I think Valanciunas started out the year last year shooting as one of the best 3-point shooters in the league at, being the center, which was crazy. But I think if Zion can be healthy, whatever that looks like for him, very similar to Anthony Davis. When I think about Zion, I think about AD. If he can give me like 60 games, I'd love that for them. But that's why I have them only at 6, because it's a big question mark of how many games is Zion going to play.
Fair enough. Who do you got at 5?
5 is where I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is where I have your Timberwolves. I've said it before. I am skeptical. I'll admit, but I'm not as skeptical as I've talked about when I'm talking about the Atlanta Hawks and that situation, because the Timberwolves to me altogether have a better team already. I love what Anthony Edwards brings. I think D'Lo doesn't need to be this amazing scorer that he's been in his past, but I think if he can be third option type vibe, I think that's really, really good for them. Karl-Anthony Towns to me had one of his best offensive seasons of his career last year. I think he's going to just continue to build on that. My main concern of what puts them at 5 for me is what I saw in the preseason when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns defending the perimeter. He looks a little lost. I think that'll get better with some time, because I just think it's something he's not necessarily that used to yet, and it's going to take some time to develop that. But I do think the addition of Rudy Gobert is going to instantly propel you guys to a top 5 top 5 defense. But I just think there will be times when Cat looks a little lost on the perimeter. But in theory, it makes sense to me. I just think, and yes, that means I had the Suns a little bit higher than them, but it's just a couple of teams I think are a little bit better. That could be a little bit better than them.
That's fair enough. At 5, I got the Pelicans.
Okay.
Um, I love. Obviously, I'm a big Zion fan. I think he's their best player. They
Yeah.
pushed the 1 seed last year to 6 games, and they're adding their best player back. I like Alvarado. I like Herb. I think Brandon's gonna take another step potentially. My only concerns with them are their interior defense. Valanciunas, that's not necessarily his strong suit. Zion,
Definitely
that's
not.
not really his strong suit either. So I think they could struggle on the interior defensively. And then you've really only played because even when last time we saw Zion, he looked great, but he still only played 60 games. So
Yep.
we've really they probably still have some meshing to do as far as spending some time actually playing basketball together. But I just want to let people know the Zion train is coming. If that man can stay on the floor, the league is about to be. Last time we saw Zion Williamson, 27, 6-5, 62% true shooting percentage. He was the best.
Absolutely insane.
He led the league in rim attempts and rim efficiency, which hasn't been done since Shaquille O'Neal did it in 2000. And he looks to be in shape. I just want people to
Get
be
ready.
prepared for what may come. If this man can stay on a basketball court, stay in shape, yeesh. This man
It's gonna be
he's a
scary.
freight train. Yep.
Who do you have at 4?
Okay, so this is where this fan base is not gonna be too impressed with me either.
Ooh.
I got the Clippers.
I'm not mad at that. I can see that. I'm not mad at
So
that.
a lot of people are really high on them. I think come playoff time, if they're healthy, they're probably one of the 2 best teams in the conference. I'm just not confident in how serious they're gonna take the regular season. That's really it for me. I think Kawhi, even if Kawhi's healthy, no injuries, he's good for missing 15 to 20 games. Like Paul George, since he's been with the Clippers, he's missed 15 to 20 games every season. So I think you're probably going to have in that range 15 to 20 games where you're playing without one or without both. And I love them fully healthy. Again, healthy come playoff time. I think they're one of the 2 best teams in the conference. I just think the teams I have above them are going to just take the regular season a little bit more seriously. So I got the Clippers at 4.
I like that. 4 is where I have the Suns. I get it. Like I said, everything you said made perfect sense. I understand the hesitation and the worry about Chris Paul. To me though, when I think about Chris, when I think about him regressing, I only see that potentially in scoring, and I don't think the Suns necessarily need him to score that much. I think he's still one of the best playmakers in the league. I still think he's one of the best floor generals at controlling a pace of an offense in the league. Devin Booker, as crazy as it sounds, I don't know if he has another level. Like in terms of like the only other level I can see Devin Booker doing is if he becomes a better playmaker, but I don't know if he'll get that opportunity playing alongside Chris. And I don't know if he's going to become a great defender either. DeAndre Ayton, the only reason I think he'll be fine there, I get there's a lot of turmoil, and I completely understand that. The way they went out was crazy. It looked like there was a lot of turmoil between him and the organization. But when I spent a lot of time watching a lot of Suns preseason press conferences, and he didn't look. The clips that went viral was him saying stuff like, "No, we haven't spoken," or "I'm here, ain't I?" But what he said after that made kind of reassured me of like he might not love it there, but he's like, "I want to prove something that I'm worth the contract that I got." Like he was like, "I can show y'all better, and I can tell y'all like how good of a player I am." So I think he's gonna come out because there were times, like I mean, before the Maverick series, there were times where he looked dominant in the post, where he looked dominant in the paint, and if I think he can get back to that for them, I can see the Suns being a 4 seed.
That is more than fair. Who do you got at 3? 3?
The 3 is where I had the Los Angeles Clippers. For a lot of the similar reasons you said, and it's mainly because I said the same thing. I wrote down how much are they going to play in the regular season. I think there are going to be a lot of times when, because honestly, because of their depth, they have the luxury to be like, all right, Paul George, you're taking this game off. Kawhi, you're taking this game off. I think a steady constant is I think you're actually going to see John Wall play a lot because the reason he didn't play isn't necessarily because of injury. He just didn't play because the Rockets was like, we're not playing you. So I think he's ready to go, full of energy, like I want to hoop. I think he's going to play a lot, and I think that's going to be really a constant for them to try to win some games in the regular season. But I agree. I don't know how serious they're going to take the regular season. I'm also have
Let's
some I have some concerns about their uh center position as well. Like I love Zubac, but literally their backup center that they run so much is Robert Covington playing the five, and that just concerns me a little bit. And I get it because if you got Robert Covington playing the five, you got Paul George there, you got Kawhi out there, y'all can literally switch everything. But if you Zubac's it's games when Zubac getting foul trouble early, they struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, I'm concerned about their center position as well. I did want to stick on the John Wall point. What are you high on him with the Clippers, low on him? What are you kind of thinking about him?
So for me, for John Wall, one of the things that I think he was starting to step into and showing what he could do his last couple of seasons in Washington was his ability to be a playmaker. I think he's a somewhat underrated playmaker. I think maybe some people forgot about how decent of a playmaker he could be. And one of the pieces I think that the Clippers have been missing for years was a consistent playmaker at the point guard position. I love Reggie Jackson. Like I think he's really scrappy. I like what he can do, but I don't think he's a great starting caliber guard. I personally think John Wall can get that starting spot over him. And Reggie Jackson as a backup point is pretty solid in my mind. I'm not asking John Wall to come in there and give you 20. If John Wall can play, honestly, it's a weird comparison, but very similar to the type of offensive production that D'Angelo Russell gives the Timberwolves in terms of scoring, but maybe a little bit better playmaking. That's kind of my expectations for him.
Yeah, I heard they were going to start Reggie and John was going to come off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I like that better than the other way around. I think that what I'm potentially concerned about is John Wall is one of those guys who he leads with his confidence. So I'm concerned that he'll potentially take touches and shots that maybe should go to Kawhi, should go to Paul George. Like I don't want to see him at double-digit shot attempts per game. Like I don't think I want to
Mm.
see him there. I
Okay.
would rather. That doesn't mean I don't want the ball in his hands because I think he is an underrated playmaker. I think he is a great passer. But I would like to see him more in the, you know how James Harden kind of went from scorer to kind of lead playmaker. I'd like to
Yep.
see John play more like Brooklyn Harden than
Okay.
I'd like to see him be more of a playmaker. I'm just not confident how much he's gonna want to do that or be willing to do that. And so that's why I'm maybe a little bit lower on him than others. But at 3, that's
Mm-hmm.
where I got my Timberwolves.
Okay.
Um, so So the thing about the Wolves, I know some people are skeptical. If you don't like the Rudy Gobert trade, I think 2 things. The first is that and this is the question I've had, and I think NBA history has shown this is, can you win a championship? Can you put on the court a playoff caliber defense if your center is a below average defender? I looked NBA history wise. I think the worst center to win a championship as a starter the last say 8, 9 years, like this modern era, is probably
Yeah.
Tristan Thompson in
That's what I was going to
2016 with the
say.
Cavs,
That was literally about to be like
and
Tristan
he's
Thompson.
and he's a good defender and a good
Yeah.
rebounder. Like
Mm-hmm.
offensively, that was his shortcoming. So I
Especially
think
that year. He was showing out. That year
yeah,
he was showing out.
and so I'm just not convinced you can win a championship with Paul Anthony Towns playing and starting at the 5. And so then you have 2 choices. You can either move him to the 4 or move him off the team. And I think they obviously decided to go with the first option. Rudy Gobert, so last 4 seasons, if you add up regular season wins, the Jazz have won the most basketball games. 4 out of the last 5 seasons, they've won at least 48 games, sometimes more than that. Each of the last 4 seasons, they've had a top 10 defense. Like we can talk about Rudy Gobert in the playoffs, and a lot of those concerns are valid. I have some of them. But in a regular season, there are only a handful of guys who make a bigger difference, have a bigger total impact on their team. And I think this is probably going to be the best defensive team Rudy's ever been on.
Yeah.
I don't those Jazz perimeter defenders were letting everybody through. So I think having some resistance out there is going to make Rudy potentially look even better on defense than he has to this point. And he's won 3 defensive player of the years. Offensively, so defensively is where I'm concerned about the cat thing. But I think some of that is just going to be negated because you have the best rim protector in basketball. And so
Yeah.
what I've seen from them this preseason, for example, is teams starting to target Cat, which is fine. You get Cat on the switch, whatever. But okay, you beat Cat off the dribble and you're meeting Rudy Gobert at the rim. Like it's just you're gonna have to pick your poison as far as who are you going to attack. I think if you start attacking Cat, like that just leaves Rudy to do what he does best, which is stand under the basket with his 7'6" wingspan and swat everything in sight.
Yeah.
Offensively, I have a lot less concerns. Jared Vanderbilt last year was
Mm-hmm.
started next to Cat, and now you got Rudy in that spot. Jared didn't take a field goal attempt outside the paint either. So I think
Yeah.
Cat is used to playing with somebody who doesn't stretch the floor, doesn't have a lot of offensive game. And they were seventh in offense last year. A lot of people don't realize that either. Like they were a top 10 offense. So I think you add Rudy to a defense that was 13th. He's never captained a defense that was worse than 10th. So they're almost a lock to be a top 10 defense, in my opinion. And then you add him to a team that was the seventh best offense in basketball last year. And he's going to play a similar role that the guy who was playing there last year. I expect them to be top 10 on both sides of the ball. And typically those kind of teams are, first seed, second seed, third seed. So I do want to talk a little bit more about Ant. I think he's going to take a lead.
Same.
Typically, superstars, if a guy's going to be like a superstar, it's his third year where he kind of jumps. And, Ja did it last year. Where his second year, he looked really good. But his third year, he's in MVP talks. Like LeBron, you can look at LeBron got drafted in 03. To me, 05, 06 was his first like MVP caliber season. So if a guy's going to be a superstar, Luka the same way. If he's going to be a superstar, you'll see it in year 3. I think Ant is. And so that jump plus all the things that Rudy does in a regular season, I think this is probably going to be one of the better teams in basketball.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you talked good about the concern about Cat on the perimeter, and that makes sense. If Rudy's behind you, I mean, that kind of almost puts Rudy in a similar situation he was in Utah, where he was defending the rim. He's one of the best rim protectors in the league. To me, he's the best rim protector in the league. And I think the only concern I had about Cat, the on-ball stuff, I'm not as concerned about. The moments when I seen Cat looking lost at the perimeter was just like the off-ball stuff, and I think a lot of that is just mental. When it comes and I think he could figure that out as the season goes on. To just being in the mindset to know that your guy's now going to be in the perimeter, because it's a different vibe. It's a different.
It's
feel.
a totally different game. Yep.
It probably feels different playing in that space defensively, being on the perimeter versus being in the paint. You see things differently. It's just a different vibe. So, but I think because that's just a mental part of just making sure you staying with your man, not getting lost on off-ball screens, stuff like that, I think they'll be fine. I'm not mad at your placement for the Timberwolves at all. At number 2, that's where I have the Golden State Warriors. Mainly because I think the Warriors have proved themselves the team that, like, we know we're good. We know we've been good for years. We just won a championship. Y'all know we're good. We know we're good. We're going to try. We're going to win games, but I don't think they're going to kill themselves for the 1 seed. That's the only reason I have them at 2. It's because I really don't think they're going to go crazy to try to get that 1 seed. To be honest, as crazy as it sounds, I don't necessarily have any concerns. I know everyone was talking about the Draymond Green punch on Jordan Poole. I'll be honest, I was concerned at the moment. I was. And then the Warriors gave Jordan Poole $140 million. And I'm not going to hold you. For 140, somebody might be able to sleep me. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all can call me a punk. Y'all can say what y'all want. But for 140, somebody might be able to sleep me too. I ain't gonna hold you. That's life-changing money right there. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that they're keeping Wiggs. They just have a really, really good team. And the reason I might have him at 2 instead of the 1, and I'll get to my 1 in a second when we get there, but they looked absolutely amazing last year. The only reason they even took a little bit of a slide to me is when Draymond got injured. Steph went into a little bit of a slump, but you know what I mean? A slump for Steph was still league average in shooting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really don't have any holes in the Warriors defense or offense. So I like the Warriors a lot. I love what I've been seeing from Wiseman and Kuminga in the preseason. They've been looking good. The Warriors are scary, bro. I really don't have no other ways to say it besides the Warriors are just scary.
Yeah, I have them at 2, but I think they're the best team in the conference. I think they're gonna be the best team in the conference.
It feels so crazy to say, but I agree.
Yeah, I think a lot of you was right. Like they've been there, they've won championships, they've been in the finals. They know like there's no use to drag ourselves to win 73 games or try to win a bunch of regular season games so we can gas out in the playoffs. Makes no sense. I just think they're going to have the foot off the gas a little bit at times. So the Draymond punch,
Hmm.
I think it'll potentially hurt them in the locker room right away. As Draymond and Poole kind of are probably walking on eggshells around each other. I think it'll ultimately help them on the court. I
Yeah.
think Jordan Poole is probably, obviously there's just like a narrative that comes with you being a dude who got knocked out. Like people want to drag on you. So maybe he's gonna be motivated to like show you like, hey, yeah, that happened, but on the basketball court, I am that guy. Don't forget that. And I think Draymond, he's under immense pressure to perform now. Like he's the guy, he's the odd man out. They extended Poole, they extended Wiggins. Like, like if he
He's
wants
basically in a
to,
contract year. He's
he's in
got
a
to have a
contract.
contract year performance.
100%. So I think he's gonna be motivated to be at his best. And Steph's still a top 5 player in the league. I love Kuminga. I'm not as high on Wiseman, but I'm probably higher than most on Kuminga.
Yeah.
I think he's going to play a really key role. Probably take a similar role as like GP2 took last year for them, where he was
Okay.
like a defensive specialist.
Yep.
If he could give you something offensively, that's the cherry on top. But one of the better perimeter defenders on the team. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say. I think they're the best team in the conference.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I was struggling because I'm like, I have them at 2. I'm confident in them at 2. But if you ask me who's the best in the conference, I would say the Warriors, as crazy as it feels. And even talking about Draymond, I saw a lot of people talking about Draymond and saying how he didn't look good in the playoffs. They're curious what he's going to look like this upcoming season. But before his injury, to me, Draymond was in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year last year. Before his injury, like he looked absolutely amazing. The defense was there. The playmaking was there. So if he can get back to that, they're going to find a way to pay him if he can get back to that. I don't know if he's going to get what he wants to get. If he's willing to take a pay cut, that'd be great. But if he can get back to that, he'll be fine. So at number 1, I'm assuming we both got the Denver Nuggets, huh?
Yes, sir. That's the way things are looking, huh?
Yeah. The Nuggets for me, and the reason, you can go ahead, what you got to say about the Nuggets while I fix this real quick.
Okay, so Nuggets for me, I just think they won. I have no idea. So let's start with this. This basketball team had no business winning 48 games last year. No
Facts.
business whatsoever. If you want Nikola Jokic's MVP case for last year, if you still feel like he shouldn't have won it, this team had no business with no MPJ and no Jamal Murray. They won more basketball teams than the healthy Timberwolves did last year. Like,
now that I'm looking at it, now you put it that way, yeah.
They had no business winning 48 games. I think Jokic is a lock for a top 3 player in basketball. They're going to get MPJ back, who I really like, especially offensively. Jamal Murray, he's been there. He'll probably take the first half of the season to kind of get, his legs back, and hasn't really played basketball for a little bit. But I just think they're a bunch of talent, a top 3 player. They've been together for a while, and I think they're going to want to be the number 1 seed. I think that's going to be half the battle between them and the Warriors. Like, the Warriors are probably going to rest a few guys on nights just because they can, but the Nuggets haven't been there and done that. So I think they're going to actually try to be as good as they can be in a regular season. So I do have them finishing as the first seed.
I agree. One of the things I wrote down when I was looking at this was the Nuggets are going to want to be the first seed. I think they're going to be gunning for it. I think it's going to be a goal from theirs from the beginning of the season. I love some of the other the outside pieces they put around them. I love the Bruce Brown pickup. I love the KCP trade. Like, I think they added some pieces to make themselves a little bit better defensively. The Nuggets, they're going to go for the 1 seed, and I think they're going to get it.
100%.
All right, man. Well, our lists were close. There are a couple of pieces we was a little flip-flopped on, a couple of teams we was a little further apart on, but for the most part, it was very, very close.
Yeah, for the most part, I think you was. Yeah, you must have been in my notes or something. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out if you hacked my computer when I type these up. Like,
for real. What are we on to next? Are we going to awards?
Yeah, let's run through these awards real quick. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the lesser awards and then end at the top. So let's start with MIP. I got Tyrese Maxey.
I like that.
I think he's just, with James Harden being better, that's gonna make Tyrese better. And I think he's gonna be in his 3rd year. I think he's gonna take a leap. Yeah, he was like at 16.5 points a game last year. I think he's gonna get into the 20s potentially. 20, 21, something like that. I think he's gonna, if James Harden is shooting the ball better, that means more playmaking opportunities for Maxey as well. So I just see a world where, they're a better team. Team has a great record. The media could potentially correlate that with Maxi's increased performance. I think James Harden being better only makes Maxi better. So MIP, I got Tyrese.
I like that. He was one of the guys that was on my short list. For me, for MIP, I'm going Anthony Simons. Part of that is because it fits my narrative that the Trailblazers are going to at least make the play in. I loved what I saw from him without Dame and CJ, and I think he can sustain some of that, not all of that, with Dame back. But I also think the Blazers are going to need him to be at least a 20 a game guy for them to be solid and then to be where I think they can be. So Anthony Simons for me is MIP.
Okay, let's talk six man. I got Jordan Poole. I expect him to come off the bench, obviously. And I just think that he's been playing so well this preseason. He's probably going to be in the low, 20s, near 20 a game. Super efficient. I think he fits their system really well. I think he's probably going to be the leading scorer off the bench, which is typically what it takes to win this award. So, yeah, I got Jordan Poole for six man.
For six man, for me, I'm going Malcolm Brogdon. I think Jordan Poole is one of the guys I've written down. I actually think Jordan Poole will probably score more than Malcolm Brogdon, but I think Malcolm Brogdon's not going to be too far behind in terms of scoring. But what I think that's going to give him the award for me is going to be that playmaking that we talked about earlier that he's going to bring for them. Because I think he's very similar to Jordan Poole. They're both going to start games off the bench, but they're going to finish a lot of games on the floor. And in Brogdon's case, I think he can finish a lot of games being that additional playmaker, scoring and getting in where he can fit in. I like him for six man for me.
Okay. Rookie of the year, I got Ben Carroll.
Yeah,
I expect
same.
the Magic to be better than maybe people think they might be. He's looked great in the preseason. He looked great in the summer league, I should say. He's got all the tools. I'm not sure where his real weaknesses lie. I mean, defensively, he's got some effort issues right now, but and typically rookie of the year is just who has the most opportunity to show that they are that guy. And I think on the Magic, he might be their best player. What I mean? Like I
would agree.
I just think he's gonna have
the Magic were primed to find a scorer. Like the Magic were primed to find a guy they can give the ball to and say, "Hey, go get us some buckets." And Paolo is perfect for that system, just to be like, "Hey, I'm the scorer. I'm the guy here." Everyone kind of fits around him. And to your point on the defensive effort, I agree. I think there's going to be some effort issues there, but also in the same breath, rookies on bad teams really don't be trying to play defense for some reason.
Yeah, that's a fact. Okay, so let's go. Let's go to coach of the year. I got Mike Malone. He has one second place finish. I think if the Nuggets are as good in the regular season as I think that they potentially could just have the best record in the league, period, like overall. And typically you win the coach of the year if your team has that kind of record. They're going to be great in the regular season. I think he's a great coach. He's been a great coach, maybe a little bit underrated. Like I said, I think he had 1 year. He had maybe I can't remember which year it was. Maybe it was the bubble year he finished second. But he has one second place finish. So I think he finally gets a trophy this year. So I got Mike Malone.
I have Eric Spoelstra for the Miami Heat. I think this is because of some of the things we talked about in terms of their personnel, their questions about the personnel. If they finish where I have them finishing, a lot of that credit, I think, to me, is going to go to Eric Spoelstra. So that's why I got Eric Spoelstra winning it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So defensive player of the year, I got Rudy Gobert. I just think that it sounds like a homerism, but I just think that he's on the best defensive team he's been on, in my opinion. Perimeter defenders are only going to make him look even better than he's looked to this point. So he's already in the regular season, probably the best defensive player in the league. We can talk playoffs, but that's not what defensive player of the year is about.
Yep.
Especially if the Wolves take a leap, like if they get to the third seed, somebody's going to have to get credit for that. I think it'll probably be Rudy on the defensive end. So I got him winning DPOY.
I had Rudy written down. The only reason he's not my pick is because I don't know if the league's going to want to give him 4. That's the only reason he's like not on my list. The next guy I had written down, believe it or not, was Draymond. Because I was like, like I said earlier, to me at least, if he never got injured, he was in that conversation.
I agree. I would have given it to him last year if he, at that point he got injured.
And then what we talked about this being a contract year, he's going to try to play at his best. But my ultimate pick, and I just realized I got two Miami Heat got people from the Miami Heat organization and this awards list. I'm going Bam.
Mhm.
Mainly because they're missing PJ. I think he's going to have to step up a lot defensively in terms of his switchability, in terms of his rim protection and what he does for that team. I think defensively, the Miami Heat still are going to be a good team, and a lot of that is because of Bam.
Yeah, Bam was on my short list. So was Draymond. The reason I leaned away from Bam was I think Miami's probably going to ask him to do a little bit
More
more
offensively.
offensively, and that's probably going to. I mean, it's just tough to, be a defensive player of
Yeah.
the year caliber player and take on a bigger load offensively. So I just think it's going to end up taking just a little bit of juice out of his defense. But that's not a bad pick at all.
Yeah.
MVP. This is probably the most controversial thing I said on this show. I think it'll be the fourth time in NBA history, the second time in the modern era. I think we're going to get a guy who goes back to back to back. I got Nikola Jokic.
Ooh. So Jokic is on my short list. I'm not mad at that pick at all.
Because again, I just think if the standings shake out the way I think they will, where they have the best overall record in the league, and he's, averaging 26, 12, and 8, 62%. Like it's gonna be, you're gonna have to try to find reasons not to give him the award. And I just don't know who else is gonna play well enough this year. Because I think you might say voter fatigue, but I think Giannis potentially could have some voter fatigue as well. He's the guy I have finishing second. I have Steph finishing third in that area. But I just think if the Nuggets are as good in the regular season as I think they'll be, and Jokic is averaging, like I said, 26, 12, and 8 or something ridiculous, it'll be hard not to give it to him, even though they won't want to. But I just think they're going to be put in a position between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. I like the Jokic pick. I had it written down on my short list. The only reason I didn't go with him is because, one, the voter fatigue, and two, I think if he puts up similar numbers that he did this year, but their record is better, I think voters are going to give that credit to Jamal Murray, MPJ coming back, as opposed to, which I'll agree, a lot of that credit, they're going to look good because they play with Jokic, for real, for real. But my pick, and you call it the homer pick, my pick's Joel Embiid. If the Sixers finish at the 2 seed, well, like I think they will, I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. I also think that with what we talked about earlier, James Harden, the version I want of James Harden isn't necessarily the guy that's going to go out and give me 30. The version I want of James Harden is the guy who's going to be feeding Joel in the pick and roll, who's going to be able to space the floor for Joel. I think Joel's going to be there on both. He has the potential to, also the reason that he's going to get deep the MVP is because he has the opportunity to showcase it on both sides of the floor. Like a lot of the Sixers defense is Joel Embiid as well, because he's a good rim protector. He's not the best when it comes to switchability and stuff like that, but he's a really good rim protector. He's solid on some switchability and things like that, at least containing guards. I don't think it's a crazy pick.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy.
It's also my homer pick, though.
I just think that, I think the difference is that I don't think MPJ and Jamal will be good enough to take shine away from Jokic, where I think Harden could potentially be good enough, especially if he shows some vast improvement over last year. People might give the extra record, that the credit for that to, Harden played a lot better this year. You know what I mean? So I think they're, so the same concerns you have with Jokic, basically, which is new pieces coming in could potentially steal some shine.
Yeah, I like that. And then we got up next is our draft. Top 5 players we're most excited to see. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we said players, not necessarily favorites, but players we think are just going to have a really good season that we're looking forward to seeing. Correct?
Yes.
All right. If you want first pick, I'll give you first pick. I got a good list. I'm happy with my list here, so I'll even give you first pick.
Okay, so I kind of gave this away. My number 1 overall pick, I'm taking Zion Williamson. I don't even think it's close.
Exactly.
Didn't play last year, but last time we saw him, like I said, 27, 6 and 5, 62% true shooting percentage. And again, I want people to contextualize this NBA history. Led the league in rim attempts and rim efficiency, which hasn't been done since Shaq, who was, a top 5 player ever. So I just think, especially he looks more in shape, I think he's in for a monster year.
For number one, I'm taking James Harden for all the stuff I've said before in terms of what I want to see from him playmaking wise. I don't necessarily need him to take more shots in terms of scoring. I just want him to be slightly more efficient than he was last year. But he can take the same, or if not, honestly, even less shots. I just need him to bump up that efficiency a little bit.
That's a great pick. If you didn't take him, I was gonna. My number two player is Anthony Edwards. Again, I kind of alluded to this earlier. I just think if you're gonna be a superstar, it's year 3 that you take the jump. I think we're gonna see a Ja Morant like jump from last year from Anthony. I have him as a first time All Star this year. I think he's gonna be that good where the the voters and the fans are gonna be like, yeah, put this kid in the All Star game. So I got Anthony Edwards, my second pick.
I like that pick. I like that pick. For my second pick, I'm going Donovan Mitchell. Call me crazy, but I was thinking about this earlier this offseason. And as weird as it sounds, I think both Donovan and Rudy somehow ended up on the best teams they've ever played with. Like in terms
Agreed.
of, and it's crazy as that because the Jazz have been good. All these
Yep.
guys we just talked about, we just broke down. They've been the top 5 defense, all these years in a row. They've been the top 10 offense all these years in a row. But somehow I feel like to me, they've now playing on the best teams in their career. And I think Donovan Mitchell could bring a lot in terms of scoring and playmaking to this Cavaliers team. And call me crazy, but I think this is going to be the first year we see Donovan Mitchell actually play defense because I think so much of his energy, and honestly, speaking to your point earlier when I picked Bam as my depoy about when you're asked to do so much offensively, you might not have the energy for defensive side of the ball. He's still going to be asked to do stuff for sure, but he doesn't have to carry the entire offense like he did with the Utah Jazz. And I think when I look back at Donovan Mitchell in college, he was solid defensively. I think he can get back to that a little bit. So I'm curious to see how he performs defensively.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Definitely it was in my top 5. So that makes my next pick. I'm gonna go Michael Porter Jr. Um, he's
Ooh.
one of those guys. I've always loved his offensive game. He just can't happen to not be able to stay on the floor right now. But I thought he was one of the big reasons that last time he was playing, the Nuggets made it to the Western Conference Finals in a bubble. I thought he was one of the biggest reasons for that. Like, dude is just a shot maker. He looks great in the preseason to this point. I just think I think he's gonna have a big year next to Jokic. This Nuggets team in general is gonna be great. I think he's gonna be a big reason for that. So I got MPJ.
At number 3, this is where I have De'Aaron Fox. I think, and the reason is he finally has, and I spoke about it earlier when I was talking about the Kings. I love what they did. I think they did it a year too late, but he finally has some spacing all around him. I love what I saw, the little bit of sample size we got in the pick and rolls between him and Sabonis. If he has somehow even worked on his jumper in offseason, they can show off some sort of jumper that make it even better for that team. But even if he's the same version of De'Aaron Fox we saw, it's one of the best guys when it comes to driving to the basket, finish around the rim. The speed is there. I think they finally put a good team around him, so I'm excited to see him this year.
That's a great pick. Um, so this is gonna sound kind of a weird pick, sound like kind of a weird, but at my number 4 spot, I got Kevin Durant. I just think that typically when you're coming off of like the worst performance you've ever had in the playoffs and people are just piling it on, you just go to this dark place. Like I think he's gonna have a like a 2012 Bron type of year, like the year after they lost
Mm,
to the Mavs, and Bron just came out and he was just dialed in to the max. Especially I think the Ben Simmons addition will help him transition. He should get a lot more easy buckets. Ben is great there. Again, Ben setting screens. Katie's gonna be able to come off those screens pretty free just because of the way teams guard Ben. I think he could have one of his highest scoring years. He was in the conversation for scoring title before, he
yeah.
got hurt last year. It wouldn't surprise me if he won the scoring title this year. I just think he's the combination of needing to remind people, like, hey, I had a bad series, but I am that guy. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
And the addition of Ben, I think he's going to be a player to watch.
that's a good pick. That's a really, really good pick, especially at 4. And it's funny, almost every reason you gave for Kevin Durant, the exact reasons why Chris Paul is my number 4 pick. I think it's not the exact same because I think Kevin Durant actually could potentially continue to get better in terms of his production coming into next season. I don't think Chris Paul is going to get any produce any better than he did last year, but I think he's hearing the noise. He didn't perform well. Everyone's saying he's getting older. Everyone's counting him out, and I think he's at the very least going to be able to reproduce what he did last season. So that's why he's at number 4 for me.
That's interesting. I think we have the opposite opinion. You think he's
Mhm.
gonna get better? I think he's gonna get a little worse.
I don't
So
think he's gonna get better. I just think he's gonna be the same.
Yep,
And I think that's at his age.
that is
If he
something
can
to
stay
watch.
the same, that's why I want to watch him.
Yep. So my last pick, I think this is the best player that nobody knows. I think that's what he's gonna be this season. I got Jaden McDaniels.
Ooh.
I just think that I think people don't realize. I think last year he was like a fringe All NBA defensive level player. Like he was so good defensively. One of the reasons that the Wolves took a huge leap on that end. This year I think he's going to be better defensively, and he's got Rudy Gobert behind him, which means he's going to be able to be more aggressive and things on the perimeter. And then offensively, I think he's going to take a leap. He averaged like 6.5 points a game last year. I think that potentially has the potential to double. I think we could see him around 11, 12 points. So I just think he's going to be the best player in the league that the average fan, isn't going to know about.
I like that. And at number 5 for my last pick, I don't know if he fixed that exact same mold, but a similar player that's not like everybody don't really know about him. He's not like the most popular guy on this team. Like for like super fans be liking him, but not everybody. And that's Bobby Portis. Mainly for the reasons of, as we alluded to earlier, Brook Lopez had that injury last season. He is getting a little bit older. He's getting a little bit slower, stuff like that. I won't be surprised if as he continues to take a step back this upcoming season, Bobby Portis, if the Bucks be what I think they can be and being the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, a lot of that's going to be with Bobby Portis stepping up.
That's a good aspect. That's good. That's a good pick. I guess so. The last thing I had was, I think I want to say this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The scoring title again. I alluded. I think Kevin Durant's got a shot. I think LeBron's going to win it this year. I think if the Lakers are going to make the play-in, he's just going to
win it. He's got to win it. Uh-oh. Something came unplugged, I think.
Am I back? Okay, sorry about that.
There you go. No problem.
I just think he's and before he got hurt last year, him and Embiid were kind of going back and forth. He averaged 30 last year. Like there's a lot of years where 30 would have won the scoring title. So I just think he's going to be healthier. He's going to play enough games, and the Lakers are going to be bad enough where he's going to have to do some heavy lifting. If he averages like 31, 32 a game, really wouldn't surprise me at all.
That wouldn't. It is crazy to say that wouldn't surprise you, but I get it. It wouldn't surprise me either. And it's not even that it wouldn't surprise me. Like you said, they're going to need it. It's not a matter of surprising. It's a matter of that's what we need from you. We need 30 a game.
Exactly. I just think he has the capability. They're going to need it, especially like, one after the All-Star break, especially if they're like out of the playoff picture. I imagine him coming out of the All-Star break with his foot on the gas. I'm not missing the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Yep.
If I got to put the roster on my back, that's what I'm going to do. So,
yeah, because I can see to that point of him, because we all know Brian, he can get his bucket, but he's a facilitator. So he's going to try to get his team involved. He's going to try to be like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we can make this offense work. But if it's not working post All-Star, he's like, all right, everybody moving my way. Everybody moving my way.
Yeah, watch this. For sure.
Oh, man. I think that's everything. Anything else you wanted to cover before we get into the NBA season?
Do you want to get a finals prediction in real quick?
Ooh.
You gotta who do you think is gonna be there and a potential.
Do you have your teams already thought of?
I did. I thought I lost some sleep over it. But I did. Like I said, the NBA is gonna be so ridiculously deep this year. So for me, I'll give you some time to kind of think about who you might have.
You go first.
I think out of the East, it's always tough to predict health. I think this team probably would have been in the finals last year had they been healthy. I got the Bucks. I think the Middleton injury, had they been healthy, they're probably the team representing the East last season. They have the best player in the world. They have a core that's been together a while. They kind of know each other well. Great coaching staff. I don't see a world where they're healthy and they're not representing their conference. And then out of the West, I think it's going to be the Warriors. I think they're the best team in the conference. Same idea. If they're healthy, I just don't see a team that's going to be beating this team in a 7-game series. As for my championship prediction, assuming that was the matchup, and I hate this because it goes against my philosophy. My number one philosophy, I say this all the time on TikTok. It goes against this philosophy, but I think the Warriors would win that matchup. I think I'd have to wait. I don't know how many games. It's obviously too early to predict that.
Yeah.
But I just think the Warriors are, for as good as they were last year and they won the title, I think they're going to be better. I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Kuminga is going to step up. We were talking about Wiseman. Poole should take another step forward. Draymond's going to be in a contract year. He's going to have something to prove. Klay Thompson was injured for half the season, so he's got a full off season to kind of get back to himself. I expect Steph to not, take any steps back. So I just think they won the title last year. I think they're going to be a better basketball team this season.
Yeah. I'm curious. You said it goes against your philosophy. What's the philosophy that it goes against?
So my philosophy is that if it's close, I'm going to take the team that has the best player on the floor.
I understand.
That's my number one philosophy when it comes to like just picking playoff series. I don't care if it's a first round series, second round, whatever. Is if it's close, give me the best player on the floor. I think Giannis would be the best player in that series.
Yeah.
The Warriors, man, they are a machine as a team.
Yeah, that's the best word for it. They are a machine. So it's tough for me, right? Because if you ask me to put on my NBA analyst hat, I'd probably say the Bucks versus Warriors as well, right? But if you want me to have some fun with it, play around with it, say everybody's healthy and play like how they think they can play.
Okay.
Call me crazy. Now, this is just a fun one before everybody go crazy at what I'm about to say. I'd say Sixers, Clippers, and the NBA Finals. A lot of it, and that's why it's a fun one, because a lot of it depends on what version of James Harden you get. And for the Clippers, it depends on how many games Kawhi and Paul George play together in the postseason, because we ain't seen them together in the postseason in like 3 years since they've been together. And that scenario, I'd probably take the Sixers. Say it's the homer pick, but that's the fun one, because I don't think they have an answer for Joel Embiid inside. My official would probably be the Bucks and Warriors, and I also would have the Warriors winning and going back to back.
See,
it don't sound as fun, but it makes more sense.
Yeah,
because when I really do, like you said, when I look at their rosters, both of those teams are the best teams in their conference if healthy. Like top to bottom, both of those teams are the best in their conference. The Warriors, like you said, somehow magically have gotten better just because they've added their young guys are ready to play and are here now. And it's crazy. We didn't talk about the Warriors like 5 times in this podcast, so we didn't even mention Klay Thompson. I think he's gonna be better than he was last year because he's now got a full season and a full off season underneath his belt. We didn't even mention him yet. So Giannis would be the best player on the floor in that series, but the Warriors, I mean, they're a unit. They move as one.
They do. So I had a dark horse in each, and it's funny you said Philly because they were my dark horse to come out of the East. If let's say something happened to the Bucks magically, I'd probably pick the Sixers. I just think Harden's gonna have a resurgent year. Obviously, my second team out of the West would probably be the Clippers. I just think that because of injuries, they just don't have as much continuity. They don't have as much chemistry. So a Western Conference Finals matchup, I would take the Warriors. But if the Warriors somehow, fold
something
or
happen, knock on wood,
knock on wood, then I'd probably go Clippers there.
Yeah, I like that. It's crazy though, because we spent all this podcast saying how even everything is and there's parity and stuff. And it's not even that the Bucks and the Warriors, I wouldn't call them super teams by any means, but they're just really that good. Like they really are just that good that if healthy and if they're playing right, they have a step ahead of everybody else in the league to me.
100%, man. I'm so excited for this season, man. I'm so excited. My squad could potentially be good for the first time since I don't know. I wasn't like consciously watching the KG days, so it'll be like the first time in my basketball fandom. And I just think the league is. One last point I want to make. I was thinking about this from an NBA history perspective. I think the Eastern Conference in particular might be the best it's been since like the 90s. Like 100%. Since because you obviously in the 90s you had the Bulls, the Pacers, the Knicks were really good. The Cavs were good. Like they were
Mhm.
pretty deep. But since then, I feel like most of the 2000s, the 2010s, the East has kind of been notably the weaker conference. I think the East is going to be strong. I think the West is going to be just as strong as it's always been. So the
Yeah.
NBA, man, it's a
NBA's
great
in a
year
good
to be
spot.
an NBA fan.
NBA's in a good spot.
100%, man.
Well, all right. I guess we out of here. I don't have a clean way to wrap this up. We're gonna have to work on that, I guess, in future episodes. But
Yeah, man. Obviously, if you're watching this, we appreciate you. We're just getting our feet off the ground. We love to have y'all be some of our first fans. You could, that's a little badge of honor you could have.
facts.
Obviously,
Got
hit
in on
us
the
up.
ground up. Gotta
Yeah,
get in on the ground.
yeah. If there's anything you guys want to see, any like things you notice out here, any recommendations or like segments, things or teams, potentially players you want us to talk about, obviously you can hit us up. We'll be on all platforms. I think we're gonna be on TikTok. We'll be on YouTube. So you guys can hit us
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah. Let us know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Peace.